everybody. Thank you for joining the FareCompare weekly video podcast, episode number 56. My name is Rick C. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FareCompare.
And I am Ann McDermott. Rick is the expert, and I'm the one who tells you disaster stories on what not to do.
Yeah, I think of you sort of like John Madden on the telestrator without actually having a telestrator. So you'll have to go back and look at what they used to do on Monday Night Football and during the afternoon. So in the case of Madden, that would have been on the afternoon times. But yes, Ann is here with the telestrator. She's the one that makes sure everybody knows what's going on. And in our podcast today, we're going to chat a little bit about, I guess we have Halloween coming up.
Oh, yes.
All Hallows Eve, Dia de los Muertos coming up. I love that time of year. Just the artwork alone on some of the Mexican heritage around that is really cool. So we'll chat a little bit about that. We'll also talk some destinations for some of these fun Halloween things. I know my daughter just got back from a crazy haunted Halloween. She said a small man with an axe chased her in the parking lot.
As long as it wasn't a clown.
Yeah, well, we also have clown sightings in a variety of places. We'll chat a bit about that too. We'll also take a question from a customer, and we'll also talk about holiday airfare and some of the tips and tricks around that as well.
Okay, our first topic is how to find the best deals on holiday airfare. Okay, Rick, how to do it?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, procrastination isn't going to be your friend. So first of all, you need to get out there and shop. If you haven't bought your Thanksgiving tickets yet, you are way late in the game. Start adding, anywhere from, depending on where you are, $2 to $5 to your virtual airline ticket every day, starting here in mid-October. So if that's not a reason to go out there and start buying that ticket, the worst possible day to fly, if you're looking at expense and the crowds, is the Wednesday before, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So there's several different days you can go there as well. So come back, leave on Thursday, the cheapest day. You also have Saturday returning, leaving on, for example, Tuesday, and different return dates even after Sunday, which is Monday and Tuesday, can be cheaper as well. So check those out. You also have 3 weeks at Christmas time. The holidays on the weekend, that makes it a little bit more complicated because that means Fridays and Saturdays are a little more expensive. You'll be looking at Wednesdays and Thursdays being your cheapest days to fly. The actual day of New Year's Day and of Christmas Day are going to be cheap as well because nobody likes to fly on those days. So, and you also need to get out there and buy that ticket as well. I mean, you need to be shopping. I know it seems a little early in October to shop for that ticket, but the holiday season, and I know I coined this term a while back, is sort of about buying a better bad deal, because there's really no good deals during holiday, especially on nonstop flights. If you want those convenient flights, those are the ones that tend to sell out first and get the most expensive quickly. Then you're left, if you procrastinate, with some of the cheaper connecting flights that can be, have very lengthy connections or even multiple stops.
Yeah, but not all, because I noticed in your USA Today column, you wrote about ways to get cheaper Christmas and New Year's flights, and you mentioned a Detroit to Los Angeles flight between December 22nd and January 2nd. And the nonstop was even more higher than $100 round trip, so than a connecting flight. And this wasn't a terrible connecting flight, apparently. We're not talking waiting in an airport for, 5, 6, 7 hours. So that's an easy way. And if you're traveling with family, saving $100 per person, boy, that's good. So, and that was just by having to stop.
The other thing too, I think we should mention as part of this too, is that because seats sell out so quickly, we've talked about this oldie but goodie, but there is a glitch in the reservation systems out there that everybody on the same itinerary has to be at the same price. So if you have a family of 3 or 4 and the prices are extremely high, go ahead and shop for one person. If you see that same flight or that same itinerary cheaper, then there's some cheaper seats and you could split your ticket purchase. And it's so much easier, Ann, today to split ticket purchases because you have a 24-hour guarantee rule, or you have a hold on some airlines. And so you don't have to worry about getting those seats. It's, and worrying whether or not you could sit together. There's also new rules about children actually sitting next to their parent that are under 12 and under. So a bunch of new rules that are actually more helpful to make sure that you get the best deal there.
We have 10 destinations that would be good for Halloween, and in most cases, they're pretty cheap too. So, and one of them is, well, fly into Boston, and then you drive like 20 miles up the road, and you're in Salem, which, of course, is renowned for the famous, notorious, infamous witch trials.
Yes, yeah. And you know, the two things that I've noticed that have taken place in cities the last 3 or 4 years is you have these interesting sort of Halloween, really realistic sort of Jason axe murderer Halloween things that are going on, where the tickets, by the way, are not cheap. The aforementioned axe murderer chasing my daughter, I think the ticket was $25 to that haunted, quote unquote, haunted house. I asked her, well, how long were you there? She said, oh, about 20 minutes. I'm like, where do I sign up for that business? So a lot of those out there. And then I noticed there's a lot of stuff going on with escape rooms as well in many cities across, where you basically solve puzzles to get out of rooms. Those are both great activities this time of year.
And, you know, if you don't want to spend any money, just go out in your backyard and, you know, look for a crazy clown, because according to all the media reports, they're just rampant across the country. They're there.
Yeah, you know, I've always been afraid of clowns in general. I remember back when I was young. Yeah, I mean, Ronald McDonald scared me when I was a kid, so I'm a little bit worried about all these clown sightings.
And on the basis of that, you never had a Big Mac in your life, correct?
Well, you know, if it was a Happy Meal and I didn't have to see Ronald with it, I was okay with that. As long as he wasn't serving, I'm good with that. So I know that Denver, Colorado has some cool haunted houses. There's some, I noticed, and one of the things that I really like about the Halloween time frame is the Mexican tradition of Dia de los Muertos. And that, you know, for those that remember the last James Bond movie, or at least one of them, you had that opening scene in that sort of area. Really interesting. And we'll talk actually a little bit later on our adventurous stuff about actually partaking in sort of the Halloween festivities of that in actual Mexico. So, but those festivities are pretty cool. I know New York has a bunch of interesting stuff. I noticed the Village Halloween Parade is also on Halloween Day as well. And then, of course, if you've never been to Orlando, I've been to the, I guess they call it Happy Haunted or whatever they do. I can't remember. I've been to it a couple times. Like yeah. So, I mean, of course, at Disney, it would have to be the happy version as opposed to the Day of the Dead version. But pretty cool place to visit as well.
My friend, I have some friends that are going to New Orleans, and I think that would be a cool place for Halloween.
I think New Orleans cool anytime, to be honest, and Halloween especially, Mardi Gras, any of those times, fun place. A lot of people, they really go out for it. And, you know, and I thought we talked in a previous podcast, I was actually amazed to see the Halloween holiday being, if not the top, one of the biggest spending holidays of the year now, taking over from a variety of other holidays.
It's people spend billions, and it's become billions in the U.S. alone, but it's such a big deal year round. I think it's sort of, you know, I think it actually originated in Europe and then sort of became became a big deal in the U.S. and now that has spread. And if anybody wants to see more on this, please check out our post. It's called Top 10 Destinations for Halloween, and you can click the city names, and it'll link you to getting deals to these cities. So
awesome. So let's see. Did we get a question from somebody on customer.service@FareCompare this week?
We did. Tom from Detroit, and he says, Thanksgiving is coming up, and normally I go visit some of my family, which is spread out across a few states. And he adds, I think this year a few of us want to go somewhere, but have never done a destination for Thanksgiving. Interesting. Do you have any recommendations on places to go, things to do for Thanksgiving? Boy, my first thought is Europe, you know?
Yeah, you know, okay, so for Thanksgiving, I have done Europe before for Thanksgiving. I actually went to London one time when they had ridiculously cheap business class fare. I remember actually taking a Southwest flight from Dallas to Houston, and then picking up my father-in-law and heading out to Europe on business class because they had $1,200 business class tickets on the then Continental Airlines, blast from the past. And on Thanksgiving, certainly, the Caribbean is a great place. I'll be enjoying some of that this Thanksgiving as well. I've also been to Disney during Thanksgiving. New York is unbelievable during Thanksgiving. Great places to visit. I think being out of Detroit, in general, you want to stay, if you can, in that, under 2 to 2.5 hour flight if you can. Because Detroit is, a hub city with Delta, you're going to find lots of nonstop flights. You're going to have convenient flights. You can also, if you wanted to, you could actually fly on Thanksgiving Day, for example, come back a Monday or Tuesday if you want to get away when nobody's coming back. Certainly, it depends on if you like cold or warm. Cold, you'll have not too many locations where you could actually go skiing at that time. Hardly any of the resorts will be open during that Thanksgiving timeframe. On the warm side, you'll have a lot of snowbirds going down from the Northeast into South Florida, also into the Caribbean as well. I think a lot of people are a little bit nervous about that right now. Whether or not some of the destinations after Hurricane Matthew are going to be in tip-top shape in the next month and a half or so, depending on what's happened. I know a lot of people have jitters around that, so that's certainly something you want to be cautious about there. But look, the cool thing about what Tom has is he has some flexibility. And with flexibility, and that means on your destination, and in his case, apparently he has some flexibility around Thanksgiving on dates, you will always be able to find a particular deal around that time of year. And so, again, I would pick, there's so many cool places because, depending on the weather patterns, I'm hearing that it's going to be a bit warmer in the South than it was in the last few years during this time frame. So if you're looking at the southern part of the United States, any of the southern bordering states, all the way, bordering Arizona through New Mexico, Texas, going through Louisiana, Alabama, all those particular locations are supposed to be a little bit warmer. That's definitely, and off the beaten path is usually good in this case, right? You have a lot of snowbirds going into Miami, Tampa, Fort Myers, but maybe a destination, for example, like New Orleans is great that time of year as well.
Yeah, and we are seeing deals from Detroit. Today, actually, as we're speaking, it's Tuesday, but check out our deals blog. We've got a load of deals. It sounds like the
I was going to say the deals are so good. The police have turned their sirens on outside my window.
Well, thank you.
Luckily, I'm on the 8th floor, so they're not coming for me yet.
Anyway, please check out the deals blog, Tom. I think it'll help you. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, no, I think Tom is in the best shape because he has flexibility on destination and the days that he can go. With that type of flexibility, almost always you can find a deal. Very rarely would you not be able to find a deal.
Would you suggest he fly on Thanksgiving Day itself?
Yeah, I think that's a great, especially if the flights are nonstop and under 2 hours, a perfect day to fly. It's the cheapest day to fly. So you'll at least have and potentially have an empty middle seat next to you. And I've found that flying on that day, which I've done several times, that actually the people are getting paid double and triple overtime. So they're actually fairly happy to be working that day. Pretty jovial flight attendants. Everybody at the airport's fairly happy. It's not like they're upset that they have to work because they're actually doing well, and they actually have fun with it. So check that out. So I would definitely choose that as one of the cheapest days to fly around that time frame.
And we thank Tom for his question. And if anybody else has a question, please send it to customer.service@faircompare.com.
Yeah, so let's head out. We've talked almost on every video podcast about one of our podcasts. You can actually get it on your pad if you'd like. The Aventurist app, you can download that on Google Play and iOS App Store. So just type in FareCompare or Aventurist, Eventurist. And this one corresponds with some of the stuff we were talking about with Halloween. This is Oda Linda, which is basically outside of Puerto Vallarta. So supposedly, and I haven't actually been to this particular festival, sort of back to the natural sort of Incan sort of nature, Mayan culture in a particular area, sort of a fusion of electronic music and a variety of stuff, plus sort of wellness and activities. I particularly was reading through it thinking, I don't think I've ever partook in jungle yoga before. So we're going to have to check out like jungle yoga. The pictures are fantastic. So take a look at the pictures on the site for this particular event. And then, it corresponds with the days leading up to Halloween and the Dia de los Muertos, which is a huge event around the Mexican culture, and participating that in sort of its natural original form would be just spectacular, I think.
It does sound lovely. It talks about sunset festivals and cocktail parties, so it could be there's something for everybody at this thing.
Well, we have the Warrior Art Car from Burning Man also on site as well. So, I think, again, these are some of these things where, they may be one of these things you've never thought about doing, but, heck, if you're going to head out for that time frame, why not catch a beach along with some interesting sort of events around it? So I think that's what makes vacations the funnest, is actually finding something, a diamond in the rough that you never would have gone to. So check that out on our event. You can check that out on the blog as well as on the native apps. And we're updating all sorts of new events. I think we're well over 250 now, and updating the ones even from last year, so that you can actually go back and check those out. We'll send you alerts to the different destinations if you sign up for alerts on the site. So check that out on FareCompare.com.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Ed.